Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So our next video is related to OWASP. So the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, that is OWASP, is a non-profit foundation that is dedicated to improving the software security. I guess we have done this in the last video. So yeah, just moving on to the next. Now, how web applications are actually working. So in order to identify an anomaly, we should first understand how this technology works. So applications use specific protocols to communicate with each other. Yes, all the communication in the internet is happening. All the communication in the applications on the internet is happening through some protocols, right? Protocols are the rules that are defined for this communication to happen. And in this case, web applications communicate using HTTP, that is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Let's take a look at how this works. So it is important that this is on the layer 7 of the OSI model. This means that the protocols such as Ethernet, IP, TCP and SSL are used before HTTP because it's on the layer 7. And these all are transport layer. TCP is the transport layer, network layer we have IP, and network interface we have Ethernet. So this is the TCP IP model and this is the OSI model, and this is on the 7th layer, right? HTTP communication is between the server and the client. So first, the client requests a specific resource from the server, right? So client wants something from the server. So that thing is referred to as a resource. So this communication between client and server is happening through the protocol that is HTTP. The server receives that HTTP request and then sends a HTTP response back to the client after passing the request through some controls and processes. So let's say we have this client and this is the server. Server sends a request and then it gets a response back from the server. The client gets the response back from the server. So the client's device receives the response and displays the requested resource in an appropriate format. So let's say client has requested an index.html file. Okay, so this is the index.html file. That's a response. Now let's take a closer look at the request and response. So an HTTP request is used to retrieve a specific resource from a server, right? So this can be an HTML file, a video, JSON data, etc., etc. The web server's job is just to process the response that is received and then present it to the user, right? So server is processing that response that is received and then it is also presenting it to the client back. All requests must conform to a standard format so that web server can understand that request, right? Request has to be in a standard format, right? And if the request is sent in a different format, it will not recognize it and it will return an error. I'm sorry. It may not be able to provide the service, which is another type of attack. So yes, this is a request line. These are the request headers that contains the host, cookie, upgrade, insecure request, user agent, accept, encode. And then that is the request message body. An HTTP request consists of a request line, request headers, and a request message body. The request line consists of the method, that is this, we have to get that request, and the resource that is requested from the web server. And the header contain certain headers that the server will process. The request message body contains the data that needs to be sent to the server, right? So now the image shows an example. Let's examine this. Okay, the get method indicates that the resource is being requested from the server, right? Because there is no name, a symbol like this means the main page of the web server is being requested, right? Okay. Nowadays, there are web applications that belong to more than one domain found on a single web server. So browsers use the host. So we have to go to this web domain, right? Next, when a web application wants to store the information on the client's device, when a web application wants to store the information on a client device, it stores it in a cookie header, right? Cookies are like the cache. So they are typically used to store the sessions information, and this saves you from having to re-enter your username and password when you visit a web application that requires you to log in, right? So the upgrade insecure request header indicate that the client wants to communicate using this encryption. Okay. Next, the user agent header contains the information about the client's browser and the operating system. Web servers use this information to send specific HTTP response to the client. The user agent header contains the information about the client's browser and the operating system, and web server uses this information. Okay. You can find some automated vulnerability scanners by looking under this header. The type of data that is requested is on the accept header, and the type of encoding accepted by the client is found in the accept encoding header. Accept language, client's language information. The connection shows that the HTTP connection is made. If there is data such as close, it means that TCP will be closed after receiving the HTTP response. So if you see keep alive, this means that the connection will be maintained. An empty line is inserted between the HTTP request header and the HTTP request message body to create a partition. So any other data to be sent to the web application is in the request message body. So if this is used, then the post parameters. Now the response. So when the web server receives a request, it performs the necessary checks and processes and then sends the requested source to the client. So there is no standard process as there are many technologies and designs involved. The server may pull the data from the database depending on whatever requested resource is, right? So it may process the incoming data. However, the HTTP response must reach the client after all processing. So this contains a status line, response headers, and a response body. The status line contains the code 200 OK, HTTP protocol information, and within the response header, some headers are used for a variety of purposes. They also contain the information about the requested resource. So if a web page has been requested, there will be an HTML code. If the client receives the HTML code, then the web browser will process the HTML code and display that web page. So this is the status line, these are the response headers, and that's the response body. Okay. Status line contains the codes, status codes, and they describe the status of the request. So these are informational, these are successful, these are redirectional, these are error, and these are server error responses. Response headers. There are some response headers that you may encounter. That is date, exact time the server sent the response to the client. Connection is handled. Server, it informs about the operating system of the server. And then last, modify, that provides information about when the requested resource was modified. And this header is used by the caching mechanism. Content type, the type of data being sent, content length, and the size of data sent. The HTTP response body contains the resource that is sent by the server and is requested by the client. Okay, so what layer is the HTTP on in the OSI model? So it's in the application layer. Great. Which HTTP request header contains browser and operating system information? Request header that contains browser and operating system information. That's user agent header, right? So it's user agent. Oh no. Great. Which status code that request was successful? That's 200. Which method ensures the submitted parameters do not request method that they do not appear, that the submitted parameters do not appear Sure, yeah, I didn't understand this question. Submitted parameters do not appear in the request URL. Which request header contains the session tokens? So request header that contains the session token. I guess that's cookie. So that's cookies. No, cookie. Yeah. Which request method ensures that the submitted parameters do not appear in the URL? Which request method ensures that the parameters do not appear in the URL? Request header except except. No, it's just for word answer. So host. No. Request method. Request method. I'm confused regarding this. Let me just Google this one. Post method or the get method. Yeah, right. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So yes, here completes our this video. If you are liking this series, so like it's just that I'm also studying and I just want to make a video so that if you're also doing this exercise, we can do this together. So if you're liking this series, do hit the like button and subscribe the channel. And yeah, I am thinking that I am gonna post more such videos because I been reading regularly about AI, about cyber, and a lot of tech stuffs. So yeah, I think I'll be posting a lot of more videos regarding all the stuffs that I read. And yeah, do subscribe the channel for more such videos. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Take care.